Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jensen, and welcome to Module 6, Types and Theories of Terrorism. We're actually going to be looking at explanations of terrorism and social movements. So this week is really applied, where we're going to be taking a lot of the material we've already done and trying to put it to these theories to see which ones do well and maybe which ones leave us lacking a little bit. So that's the goal for the week, is to apply. Keep in mind we're going to be looking at some of the material that you used in Module 4, Social Movements, for some of the activities this week. So just make sure you keep that material handy, especially Brent Smith's right-wing, left-wing, special interest, international terrorism typologies in those readings. You'll want to use those for this week as well. So this module's interesting in looking at the ideologies of different groups and some of the things that matter to them, the political spectrum of the causes they tend to be aligned with, and the kinds of behaviors and demographics we see with these groups, as well as targets, the profile of these terrorist actors. So it's kind of fun to see this stuff in action so we can do better identification. So here we have our objectives. We're going to explain differences between different types of terrorists, distinguish the characteristics of right-wing, left-wing special interests and a typology, which you're actually going to do in a quiz. And then you're going to identify different theories that can best explain different types of terrorist groups. So for our Think About It question this week, if you were a national security advisor, which wing, left or right, do you think is the greatest threat for domestic attacks or international attacks, and why? So this just kind of puts you back into career mode, thinking about how knowing the attributes of these groups could be useful when you're trying to do preventative type measures. As far as readings go, it's a lighter week in reality. And I know you're going, wait a second, we haven't looked at the Hoffman book in a long time. Should I just sell my book now? No, don't. So we're going to be jumping back into the Hoffman book next week when we start to look at media. In fact, you're actually going to see Bruce Hoffman in action giving a lecture at some international summits where he really describes the current landscape of media use and terrorism post-2016. So it's kind of exciting to get to meet the author that you're reading. He's very articulate, very gifted with the written word. In fact, he writes all of his talks because on the cuff he admits he's not quite as good, but he's a very analytical thinker, and he wants to make sure all of his information is accurate and really telling. So I think you'll enjoy getting to see Bruce Hoffman. The readings we have are by Richardson, who is at Harvard University, and her book, What Terrorists Want, Understanding the Enemy Containing the Threat, is kind of a classic in terrorism studies or modern terrorism studies post-2001. And her infamous chapter is What Causes Terrorism? And so in here, it's very easy reading to do. I know some people might be intimidated reading books from a Harvard scholar, but she's very easy to read, and it's fun to see the profile of a terrorist emerge in her work when she looks at interviews and other kinds of things that help her develop that. She also talks about something called relative deprivation, where you look at what you have or don't have in terms of what other people have or don't have. And that's where the comparison comes from. She's going to focus on this quite a bit in this chapter, and you might want to use that relative deprivation term to work on your activities for this week. So take some notes on that and keep that in mind. You also have a reading by Kaplan called Leaderless Resistance, a little bit of an older article, but it establishes the foundation of modern terrorism today. So this is one of the first articles that looked at networks of extremism that didn't have full-fledged organizational attributes, and lone wolf terrorists and those kinds of things as a method and a strategy for terrorism. So we're going to look at that article too. So not as tough a reading to do. You do have some videos that will walk you through the theories on terrorism a little bit better, so these theories are not quite as daunting. And then for your activities, there's a lot in here. So you have 2 activities. You have a left wing, right wing, and special issue terrorism matching quiz. So you will want to go to Module 4, and we can do that now, and I'll show you. Go to Module 4. I'm going to take a quick shortcut to get there quickly. And when you're in Module 4, go to the Readings tab, and this is where you're going to find Brent Smith's work, Chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6, that talked about right, left, wing terrorism, and he had some typologies and charts that you will find very handy for that matching quiz. So look for the charts inside his chapters, review those before you take the quiz. So that is there for your benefit. So I try to give people tips, especially if you're watching the overview videos. You should be rewarded for that, right? Okay, so we'll go back to your videos and your activities. After that, you have Theories of Terrorism, and it's just a very brief 1-page paper showing me that you can apply and understand a theory of terrorism behavior. So essentially, you're asked to provide these items in the theory, and this is how I grade. So make sure you're very deliberate in how you address each of these items and be obvious about it. And it says present your work here. This is just a place to upload the document that you create. But the theories are below. So we have relative deprivation theory, which again you'll hear from Richardson on that. We have Marxist theory, mass society theory. This one is more of a political science theory, if that's kind of more of where your thinking is. We also have social strain theory, which you would have seen in criminology classes. We have resource mobilization theory, which is more of a geopolitical theory, political process, and that's it. Those are kind of the major theories that work in terrorism today. So look over those, see which ones make sense to you, which ones you feel comfortable working on. You can choose any of them, but you just have to choose one. So after selecting your theory, you'll identify what a social movement is, describe in your own words what the theory explains, the strengths and the weaknesses of the theory, and then 5, provide an example of the theory, hypothetical or real, to demonstrate your understanding of how it works. And you can use groups that you've read about in the readings for class, and the Hoffman book has plenty of examples to start to show you groups that would match up to this theory pretty well. So again, this is about application, demonstrating your understanding of the concepts. So that's it. Really not too bad of a week. Just pay attention to the due dates, because I try to make stuff due kind of in conjunction with the weekend. Now, University of Florida does not have President's Day off. It is not a university holiday. However, I know many of you have President's Day weekend plans. So just make sure that you reconcile those plans in with the due dates so that you can get everything done before you take off for the holiday weekend. And other than that, we'll see you next time.